When I finished the last presentation, I realized there was a lot unsaid. So here are two practical suggestions that are options. Book a one-week cruise on a crude charter yacht, one with an experienced and knowledgeable skipper and a gourmet first mate chef. You'll learn a lot about what a boat in the Caribbean will need and where to anchor and how to anchor, what coves and ports to visit, how to clear in and out of the islands, where to provision, what beachside restaurants to visit, and how to sail between the islands. The cost is between $8,000 and $10,000 for 2 or 4 people. Consider it an investment, part of your research. If you are a boat owner and have not yet sailed your boat to the Caribbean, then you're probably going to consider chartering a bareboat for 2 weeks. There are charter bases throughout the island chain. It costs between $1,000 to $1,500 per person per week. For a couple, that could be $4,000 to $6,000, $8,000 to $12,000 for 2 weeks. Let's say $8,000. And you have to buy the food and do the cooking. Before you go calling hundreds of charter companies to find the right boat in the right location and the right deal, get some local knowledge. Call a charter agent. It won't cost you any more to book a charter through them than going directly with the charter companies. And these people know the islands, the boats, and the companies they're dealing with. If you're going on a bareboat charter, call Ed Hamilton Charter Agency. They're here in Maine, and talk with Steve McCree. For crude charter boats, call some friends of mine down in Newport, the Nicholson Yacht Charter people, and talk with Shelby Nicholson or Karen Shea. Okay. Get that out of the way. Now, before you go, it's time to do some research. So the first thing to do is to go buy Chris Doyle's cruising guides. I've had this old copy here for about 15 years. Time to buy a new one. But in here, Chris does a great job with covering all the details of each island. He tells you about the anchorages. He gives you sketch charts. He tells you where to go ashore, where to clear customs, where to get provisioning, where to get repairs done, where to buy supplies, and all about the hiking. It's very valuable. You should have 2 of them, one for the Leeward Islands and one for the Windward Islands. Don Street has been writing about the Caribbean for 40 or 50 years, and he's still alive and sailing in Ireland. But he's written a couple of great books. They're very entertaining to read. He's a great storyteller. He's a little more detailed because his directions involve compass bearings to get into little difficult harbors without hitting the rocks. So there's 2 guides. The couple of other publications would be helpful. If you really want to know what's going on in the Caribbean, Caribbean Compass is a monthly magazine that covers the Caribbean and primarily the cruising community. You can pick up free copies at any of the marine stores, hardware stores, marinas, gas docks, restaurants, and bars. You can get it online at CaribbeanCompass.com, and you can look at past issues in their archive section, and I have usually an article in there every month or so. Cruising World covers the cruising world, and a lot of it deals with the Caribbean. They're very helpful, and I have an article in the October issue dealing with my favorite anchorages along with Larry Tyler's favorite anchorages. All at Sea is another magazine that is free in the Caribbean and covers the Caribbean and Florida. Island newspapers are handy, but there's some other ways to find out what's going on. The Facebook groups on each of the islands have become the Coconut Telegraph of the old days. And noonsite.net is a very valuable source of information, timely information for cruisers around the world. They not only cover the Caribbean, they cover the rest of the world too. When I take off on a cruise, as I'm getting ready to do now, I think, what books do I want to read on the way, and what books might I bring along to read while I'm in the Caribbean? I remember reading James Michener's Caribbean 20 years ago, and it was very helpful to understand the background of the islands I was visiting. At one time, I had the entire collection of John MacDonald's Travis McGee books that deal a lot with the Caribbean, Florida, and the coast. Now, we've got all that out of the way. You still are undecided about whether you're going to go south or not. Now, let me give you a little bit of advice about how much it's going to cost. If you haul your boat and store it for the winter, a 45-foot boat might cost you between $4,000 and $10,000. To haul it, block it, store and remove the mast winterize the engine, the water system, and the generator, and shrink wrap the boat or store it inside. Now, you already know how much it costs because you pay that every year. Now, how much does it cost if you were to sail your boat to the Caribbean for the winter? Delivery skippers figure between $1,500 and $2,000 each way, down and back. Most of this is spent on provisions for the crew, fuel, and dockage en route. If you join the Salty Dog Rally, there's a rally fee to pay. The NARC, the North American Rally to the Caribbean, is free. Your crew also comes free. They pay their own transportation to and from the boat, and you just provide the food and onboard expenses. So you figured out, is it actually cheaper to sail your boat to the Caribbean than put it on the hard for the winter here? Well, for sailors, those offshore voyages are bucket list things to do. And serious sailors say, I got to get my boat to the Caribbean at some point. If you continue sailing once you get there, because it doesn't cost anything to anchor out. There's no sense going offshore unless your boat's ready. In the next Zoom chat we do on October 6th, we'll deal with the proper boat to go offshore in. While you're still thinking of it, ask your insurance company if your current policy covers you and the boat for the voyage. They may want a survey, see resumes of the crew, see what you have on board for necessary safety equipment. Now, where are you going to find suitable crew, people that are experienced in going offshore? Go to sailopo.com. It's a national crewing network that's run by Hank Schmidt, who's an offshore delivery skipper. He puts owners together with crews. Most of the people have a lot of ocean experience because this is what they like to do when they're time off, sail other people's boats to the Caribbean. The crew pays their own way to and from the boat, and the owner provides the onboard expenses. If you and your mates have yet to make an offshore voyage, hire an experienced skipper to mentor you and your crew on the way down. The cost can be between $3,000 and $5,000 plus travel expenses to and from the boat. Now let's look at how much it's going to cost if you keep your boat down there for the winter. We said it's not going to cost anything if you keep sailing it. But if you have to leave your boat for any reason at any length of time, you can haul it out at one of the many yards that are down there. The cost, hauling the boat, $550 for a 40-footer. Block it, $280. $15 per foot per month for storage. $1,500 for the first month. You can also rent a slip. At $1 a foot a day on a monthly rate, that's $1,200 for a 40-footer. Trouble is, all these marinas are in very safe harbors, but the water is stagnant, which promotes growth on the hull and the prop. There's very few moorings in the Caribbean that you can rent by the month. But here's a cost-effective solution. Find someone to boat sit. Somebody to live on your boat at anchor. No cost to anchor out. Call up that nephew of yours who has sailed with you and knows the boat and ask him if he'd like to live on your boat for a month or two in the Caribbean while you scoot home. I boat sat on other boats, and I've hired people to boat sit on my boat. Most recently, I boat sat the Dove, a 54-foot cutter, and delivered it from Antigua to Martinique with a family over Christmas, and that article is going to be in the November issue of Cruising World magazine. Okay, now we've got some more details to go over and some more basic information about the Caribbean. The weather. Winds will be easterly, maybe north of east, maybe south of east, 12 to 20 knots, occasionally higher in gusts. The temperature, 72 to 82 degrees. Weather reports in the morning on VHF net in the selected islands. You can use windy, predict wind, passage weather, or you can look up at the sky and watch the barometer. You can buy a tailored weather forecast daily or weekly from Chris Parker, and he'll deliver it on single sideband radio or over the internet or by email. It's $20 a day, $100 a month, $200 a year. Sign up for Predict Wind's routing package. It's $100 a month, and get daily wind and weather forecasts via the internet or shore, or via the sat phone when you're on board, or from your cell phone. Wind and sea conditions. In the lee of the large islands, there's little wind. You'll be motoring most of the way. You have to move 5 to 10 miles to the west before you can pick up some wind. Between the islands, there's the island slot effect. As the easterly winds funnel through the gap between the large islands, the wind picks up speed and the seas mount up. In some areas, there's a mountain effect on the winds and turbulences in places. Christmas winds are strong, reinforced trays that can blow for days, rarely a week, with sustained winds of 25 knots with gusts into the 30s. They happen around Christmas time, middle December to into January. Squalls and rain showers can be expected daily, mostly at night. Northerly swells can sweep down from New England northeasters all the way to the Caribbean, creating uncomfortable and often dangerous conditions in many anchorages. They only last a few days, but I must say that the swells make great body surfing. Eyeball navigation. Get used to reading water depths by the color of the water. The lighter, the shallower. Seaweed. It was getting bothersome when I was there 2 years ago, to the point where you didn't want to drag a line for fishing because it got fouled all the time. There's so much sargasso weed now mounting up on the windward beaches that it sits there and begins to smell as it rots. Now, there's a lack of navigational aids throughout the Caribbean, so sailing at night is a chancy affair, downright dangerous. Hopping down the island chain can be done well offshore, but many of the small fishing boats have no lights and certainly no AIS. There's too much to talk about when it comes to navigation, so we'll skip it for this time. I have used Navionics on my iPhone and delivered a boat from the Caribbean and sailed through the Caribbean with just my iPhone. I've now moved up to an iPad. Anchoring. Don Street and Larry, Tyler, and I kicked around the topic of anchoring in the Caribbean in an article in Caribbean Compass September issue. Let's just say a few things here. Don't anchor in seagrass in coral beds. Dive to inspect your anchor. Your anchoring technique is more important than the anchor you have. Since the trades are easterly, one anchor should be sufficient. Not so in the Bahamas, where 2 anchors are required. In the Bahamian more because the wind shifts around so much. Deploying a second anchor when the wind pipes up will add to your nighttime security and sleep. Communications, big issue. VHF have a handheld in the cockpit. The morning radio nets on each island between 8 and 9 a.m. are helpful, and they give you a feeling that you're part of the cruising community. Cell phones. We all have one, and everyone on the island has one. There are competing companies and services, some more affordable than others. You can use your existing phone from the States and your US-based service provider. Each one of them has an international calling and data plan. 2 years ago, I was on Verizon, and they charged me $10 a day to make calls, send text messages, and download and upload data. The plan was limited to 1 gigabyte, but I could connect up while out in the anchorage. Now I'm with Spectrum, and they charge by usage, which varies from island to island, but not by much. It costs 10 cents a minute to make a call, 2 cents to send a text, and 2 cents per megabyte for data. That's around $20 a gigabyte. Larry and his maid Justina use Digicel, which they signed up for in Martinique. And they can be used throughout all the island chain, I think, including Panama and Bermuda and the US and Canada for 30 days. We have a 40 megabyte plan for 30 euros and a 60 megabyte plan for 60 euros. You need a credit card and you can stop whenever you want. We watch Netflix, Amazon TV, YouTube, etc., but the reception can be patchy. Postal mail service takes months to get a letter or to send a letter. FedEx services the big islands, but it's wickedly expensive. Better to have someone at home sort through your mail, open what looks important, scan it, and send it to you as an attachment in an email. Charge cards are accepted everywhere, US greenbacks as well. In the French and Dutch islands, it's the euro. In the rest of the islands, it's the EC, Eastern Caribbean currency. You can obtain these at ATM machines, which are prevalent throughout the islands. A US dollar buys $2.70 of EC currency. Prices in stores and markets are apt to be shown in EC, so don't panic when you see that a beer is going to cost you $15. Immigrations and customs. Every island is a different country, and policies are different for clearing in and clearing out. The French islands are the best and the easiest and the cheapest. You find a local office, often in a bar or restaurant or boutique or the town hall. It's a computer. You sit down, fill in the on-screen form, filling in passport names and numbers, yacht information, last port of call, next port of call, and then you pay somebody €4 for the service. They press a button and it's sent. On all the other islands, you have to fly the Q flag. The captain goes ashore with the ship's papers and the passports, finds the office or offices, is grilled by the bureaucrats, papers are filled out. If you're going ashore to clear in, you have to bring the passports, the ship's papers, which is your documentation, crew list, COVID authorization forms, proof of vaccinations for each crew, proof of negative PCR test at the last place. Some are asking for yacht insurance, medical insurance, and evacuation insurance. People often ask me, what are my favorite islands? That list, together with Larry's list, is in the October issue of Cruising World. More important is a list of islands that provide great convenience. If you have friends flying in to join you, which islands have good connections to Europe and the States? Which islands have good marine services, fuel docks, marine stores, supermarkets, medical facilities, internet hotspots, and good hiking trails ashore? Chris Doyle's guide will have all of this information. The next Zoom chat we'll deal with the offshore boat and the passage, the Gulf Stream, weather routing, and what it looks like to sail those 1,700 miles in the open ocean. Kids on boats. This could be a Zoom chat all by itself. And if you're interested, please let me know and I'll organize one in the near future. So many of life's lessons are required on a boat at sea, immersed in nature, solving problems as you go, instilling self-reliance as well as teamwork, watching out for one another, protecting the environment, sailing, not motoring, meeting new people and strange new cultures. It's a life-changing experience. There's never been a family or an adult I've spoken with who has regretted taking a year or more off and sailing to new worlds as a family. My family certainly doesn't. Our kids have sailed with me since they were born. We've spent 3 seasons in the Caribbean. My daughter just graduated from Maine Maritime Academy with her second mate's license. My son is off to a university in the UK to become a marine engineer and a yacht designer. They both will have their own boats in a few years and bringing up their kids on the water, as my father did with his sons. Boat schooling is fairly easy. It's the boat, the sea, the experience that does the teaching. Parents just need to keep the kids reading. We did that, and there's a lot of tips on how to do this and make the experience rich for everyone. And I'll do that in the next webinar. Stay tuned.